It is the dead of night, November 5th, 1274. The beach at Komoda on Tsushima Island lies in complete darkness except for a few flickering lanterns. The sea is eerily calm. Then, out of the black mist, hundreds of ships silently appear, not fishing boats or traders, but a massive invasion fleet carrying thousands of battle-hardened warriors from the Mongol Empire, along with their Korean and Chinese allies. On that narrow stretch of sand, a tiny force waits to meet them, roughly 80 mounted samurai, led by So Sukekuni, the deputy governor of Tsushima, together with their loyal retainers and a handful of local fighters. In total, the Japanese defenders on the entire island numbered only a few hundred at most. One side represented the greatest land empire the world had ever known, disciplined, experienced, and armed with terrifying new weapons. The other side represented the proud warrior tradition of Japan, where honor, individual skill, and the samurai way had been sharpened through centuries of internal battles. This was never going to be a fair fight. Yet, in the next few hours, these 80 samurai would write one of the most courageous and misunderstood chapters in Japanese history. What really happened that morning when a handful of samurai charged into the Mongol horde at Tsushima? The truth is far more intense, more tragic, and more important than the legends you usually hear. If you love real history that cuts through myths and shows exactly how events unfolded, hit subscribe to Era Reborn right now and turn on notifications. These are the stories that actually shaped nations. To understand why this battle even happened, we must go back to Kublai Khan. By the early 1270s, Kublai had conquered China and established the Yuan dynasty. His empire stretched from Eastern Europe all the way to Korea. Almost nothing stood in his way, except Japan. Japan was ruled by the Kamakura shogunate. Real power rested with the Hojo regents, while the emperor held mostly ceremonial authority. The samurai class was highly skilled, but they were used to fighting each other in relatively small civil wars, not facing a massive, unified continental army. Kublai first tried diplomacy. He sent envoys demanding that Japan become a tributary state and pay homage. The Japanese refused. Some accounts even say later messengers were executed. To Kublai, this was an insult that could not be tolerated. In 1274, he ordered the invasion. The force was assembled in Korea, which was already under Kublai's control. Reliable estimates suggest the entire expedition numbered between 15,000 and 40,000 troops. Mongols, Chinese, and Koreans carried on roughly 900 ships. Their first target was Tsushima, the small strategic island chain lying directly between Korea and Kyushu. Tsushima was lightly defended. So Sukekuni had only a small permanent garrison. When scouts spotted the massive fleet approaching in the evening of November 4th, he had almost no time to prepare. He gathered what he could, his personal force of about 80 mounted samurai, plus retainers and island fighters. These were experienced warriors, masters of horseback archery and swordsmanship, but they had never faced gunpowder weapons, massed formations, or an army this size. According to the Japanese chronicle Hachiman Gudokun, something strange happened that very day. The shrine of Hachiman, the god of war on Tsushima, mysteriously caught fire. The flames were quickly put out. Then a flock of white doves, Hachiman's sacred messengers, landed on the roof. To Sukekuni and his men, this was a clear omen. The god was warning them, but also standing with them. Sukekuni led his small force over a mountain pass during the night and took up position at Komoda Beach, the most likely landing point. They waited in the darkness, bows ready, knowing exactly what they were facing. The Mongols did not wait for sunrise. Around 2 in the morning, they began landing at multiple points, with the main assault at Komoda Beach. Sukekuni sent representatives forward, perhaps hoping to negotiate or at least buy time. The Mongols answered with arrows. The message was clear. There would be no talks. By 4 in the morning, the fighting exploded. The Japanese fought in their traditional style, individual charges, skilled horseback archery, and close-quarters combat with swords and naginata. Samurai would call out their names and lineage, seeking worthy opponents in single combat. It was personal. It was honorable. The Mongols fought completely differently. They advanced in tight, disciplined formations, protected by large shields. They fired massed volleys of arrows, some poisoned. They used drums and goms to coordinate their movements, creating a terrifying rhythm the Japanese had never heard. Most shocking of all, they hurled early gunpowder weapons, thunder crash bombs that exploded with smoke, fire, and deafening noise. Horses panicked, formations broke, chaos spread. Despite being horribly outnumbered, the samurai fought with ferocious bravery. According to the So-Si Kafu, the clan history of the So family, one samurai named Sukesada cut down 25 enemy soldiers in individual combat before he fell. Other samurai performed similar feats of arms that became legendary in family records. Sukekuni himself led repeated charges, but numbers and technology were overwhelming. The Mongols kept pouring ashore. By nightfall, Sukekuni gathered what remained of his men for one final desperate cavalry charge straight into the heart of the enemy lines. He and most of his samurai died in that last attack. By the end of the day, Tsushima had fallen. The Mongols swept across the island, burning settlements and killing many civilians, a deliberate terror tactic to break resistance ahead. They did not stay long. After securing Tsushima, they moved on to Iki Island, where another small defense force met the same fate. Popular stories often claim 80 samurai faced 30,000 Mongols. The real picture is still shocking. The So-Si Kafu records roughly 8,000 Mongol troops landing at Tsushima from the 900-ship fleet. The entire 1274 expedition was likely between 15,000 and 40,000 men overall. Tsushima was never meant to be the main battle. It was the first stepping stone. The real story is not about superhuman samurai winning against impossible odds. It is about a brutal clash between two completely different ways of war. Samurai warfare emphasized individual skill, honor, and personal glory. Mongol warfare emphasized discipline, combined arms, terrifying psychological tactics, and overwhelming coordinated force. The exploding bombs, the shield walls, the relentless arrow storms, these were completely alien and terrifying to the Japanese defenders. Yet the samurai did not break easily. Their fierce resistance, even in total defeat, delayed the Mongols and showed that conquering Japan would not be quick or easy. After Tsushima and Iki, the Mongols reached Hakata Bay on Kyushu. There they faced larger, better organized samurai forces. The Japanese used fortifications and launched counterattacks. The Mongols suffered casualties, ran low on supplies, and eventually withdrew after a storm damaged their fleet. This 1274 invasion is now seen by many historians as more of a large-scale reconnaissance in force than a full conquest attempt. Kublai would try again in 1281 with an even bigger fleet, only to be devastated by the famous typhoon the Japanese called kamikaze, the divine wind. The Battle of Tsushima was a tragedy for the island.
So Sukakuni and his men died defending their home. Civilian deaths were heavy. The island was plundered and burned. For the Mongols, it was a tactical success, but a strategic warning. They learned Japan would fight hard. For Japan, these invasions, especially the resistance at Tsushima, became the foundation of a powerful national memory. The kamikaze storms were seen as divine protection. The samurai who stood their ground gained eternal prestige. Their stories were preserved in famous scrolls like the Mongol invasion scrolls commissioned by the warrior Takezaki Suenaga. The invasions also forced real military changes in Japan, better fortifications, more organized tactics, and a growing sense that Japan was a special realm protected by the gods, an idea